Shuckalugga kapow. How's it going, old schoolers? You're kicking it old school with Russell J.S., and I am your host, Russell J.S. Right now, I have my phone, which is what I'm using for a camera. I'm leaning it up on the screen of my Pac-Man countercade, which is doing a good job. Right here, you can't. Oh, yeah, you can see right here, there's the joystick for it. And here's, like the side paneling right here. Tonight on Kicking It Old School, I want to go ahead. I already went over my top favorite movies of the 1990s. Now I want to go 80s to my childhood. Now, in the 1980s, just like the 90s, so many great movies came out in that decade where a lot of them were my favorites. But, I want to put my top 10 favorites from childhood on this list. And you know what? If you're new to the channel, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, leave comments down in the box below, ring the bell for notifications. It does help the algorithms for YouTube. And you know what? You could tell your friends about this channel, your pets, your family, anybody that's into old school Generation X stuff, pre-millennial, beyond pre-Gen Z. But, even gappers between the baby boomers and the Generation X. And there's going to be an honorable mention before I get to number one, what my number one favorite, 80s movie is. I mean, now these are childhood, this is the stuff I remember watching all the time when I was a child. Because, I still had restrictions, even though one of the movies on here is going to be rated R because my mom and dad did let me see it, despite the fact that there were booby shots and a lot of bad words. But I'm going to explain to you why it's going to be on this list, despite, you know, a little child shouldn't be watching such a movie like that. But it was the 80s, and us kids back then, little and teenagers, we knew not to get caught using bad words. We knew not to get caught smoking or drinking. We knew not to go in our parents' bedroom and find that certain box of magazines under our father's side of the bed because we knew we'd get in trouble. And plus, when it came to nudie scenes, my mother either jerked me around in a complete 180 or she did this, the classic hand over the eyes thing. And man, did she cling real good on my eyes. Probably why I got claustrophobia. No, actually, I get claustrophobia because I remember going with my dad and my Uncle Bill in my Uncle Bill's Corvette back in the early 80s through a drive-through car wash. And you know how cramped up Corvettes can be. And yeah, I kind of got scared, being in the dark, seeing those spinning brushes and the water and everything hitting the car. So probably scared me to death. I can remember seeing the end of the wash tunnel and I'm thinking, okay, we got to get to that quick. But we're not here to talk about childhood traumas or childhood memories. What we're here for, we're going to talk about, great movies of the 80s. Like I said, I have so many favorite 80s movies, some of which, like This Is Spinal Tap, The Blues Brothers, or Scarface. And Friday the 13th, well, my first horror experience was Friday the 13th when I was 9, but there's a lot of movies to that franchise. It was hard because I can only pick 10 of my top favorites from childhood. And we're going to get this going without further ado. Let's check these bad Oscars out, shall we? Number 10 on the list, 1989's Batman, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, and Kim Basinger. When this movie came out, the summer blockbusters in 1989, I can remember I was excited for Ghostbusters 2 and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and everything was sequels except for this, and I think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and UHF starring Weird Al Yankovic. And everything else for the summer blockbusters was all a sequel. Ghostbusters, Karate Kid, A Lethal Weapon, and the list went on. But this right here, it broke records at the box office in the summer of 1989, and it became the number one video movie sold once it came out to video. So this right here, I mean, I didn't want to see it at first because when I saw the trailer for it, I thought it was too serious and too dramatic. I was used, when it came to live action Batman, I was used to seeing the old TV show with Adam West and reruns. But when I went ahead and saw this with my cousins, my father had explained to me, yeah, this is what the original Batman comic was like. It was serious, so there was no kapow, or pow or oof or bam or zap on the screen during the fighting scenes. And you know what? I became, like every other kid, I became obsessed with Batman. I mean, right next to Ghostbusters, my Christmas that year was Batman stuff and Ghostbusters stuff. And, I got the Batman 89 Tiger LCD handheld for Christmas that year. That would be, hold on. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. Well, you know what? I've showcased it before in the past, on past videos, so no sense in digging for it right now. It's probably packed away somewhere, or probably out in the car. Maybe I brought it along with me to play a game while I was out and about. But this was the ultimate movie to go see in 1989, that summer. Number 9 on the list, again, another cinematic opus by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton, Gina Davis, Alec Baldwin, the ghost with the most. Say his name 3 times, say it once, say it twice, third time is a charm. 1988's Beetlejuice. I remember I was still big into Ghostbusters, and I'm planning on doing a video where I compare the original Ghostbusters movie to this comedic, campy masterpiece directed by Tim Burton. And, I can remember, it was a big box office hit in 1988, and before you know it, it had a cartoon. It did have an animated series that came on right after the real Ghostbusters. So I got back to back Hereafter humor. And this is one of those movies, once again, like Batman, I couldn't take my eyes off it. I couldn't stop watching. And everybody was crazy about Beetlejuice. I mean, just like everybody was crazy about Batman. I mean, this one right here, you couldn't get away from. I mean, they had merchandise like crazy for this. And, Beetlejuice, everybody was celebrating Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. It's showtime. But, like Batman, it didn't really have much as far as merchandise except for an animated series, a small action figure toy line by Kenner, which he had many adventures with the real Ghostbusters when I would play with the real Ghostbusters action figures as well. But this is, to me, one of the all-time greats of the 1980s. Moving right along at number 8. George Lucas allowed Mel Brooks to do a parody of one of his movies under the condition that he doesn't make any merchandise ties, just like one previous movie we know. Starring Mel Brooks, John Candy, Rick Moranis, Bill Pullman, and Daphne Zuniga. 1987 Spaceballs. Now, the funny thing was, this movie came out 10 years after the original Star Wars, 7 years after The Empire Strikes Back, and I want to say 4 years after Return of the Jedi. Not only do they go ahead and spoof Star Wars, but they spoof the entire science fiction movie genre in a whole. Everything from Planet of the Apes to Alien to Star Trek, The Wizard of Oz. And this is a timeless classic, and in 2 more years, I just found out they are right now in production for Spaceballs 2. and it's not going to come out until 2027. But you know what? It's 2025, and I think it'll go by quick, and before we know it, we will have Spaceballs 2 coming out for us. And, this is one of my all time favorite classics. It was so quotable, you know, everything. So, yes, number 8 on my list right here, Spaceballs. Number 7 on my list, we're getting into dramatics. The Karate Kid, starring Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. Now, this movie right here, I didn't see it when it came out to the theater. I heard all about it, and when the sequel came out 2 years later, they came out with a video game, and they had an small action figure line, and they had book covers with karate lessons. It spawned at the time two sequels, a not a spin-off movie with Mr. Miyagi called The Next Karate Kid, a reboot starring Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, and then also many years later, the Netflix Cobra Kai TV series with Machio and William Zabka both returning as Johnny and Daniel, which was a big hit, and now just released a video and streaming services and everything. Karate Kid Legends with Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan returning as Mr. Han from the reboot. And this movie right here, I first saw it a few months after I moved from New Jersey to Florida. And it was very relatable in the beginning when the one kid asked Daniel, "Where you from?" And he says, "New Jersey." My mom was in the kitchen getting dinner ready. I got all excited and I was like, "Whoa!" And the thing is that it's very relatable for me. I know what it's like to be the new kid, and I know what it's like to be picked on, and I know what it's like to move out of the place you're from to another state and be away from everything all your friends. You have to start over again, start from square one, make new friends, and only visit back home, like at a certain point of the year. So, yep, this one right here is number 7 on my list. And number 6 on my list, oh God, none of us were able to get enough of this one. We're going into Steven Spielberg territory right now, which we will be going in once again, is The Goonies. Now, what can I say about this? At the time, you had movies like Explorers, the two Indiana Jones movies, and Stand By Me, where kids go exploring and everything, go on adventures. Return to Oz. But this one, we all wanted to become treasure hunters. We always wondered when this movie came on, if I had friends over at the house and this movie was about to come on HBO, my mom would say something and we would drop everything we were doing. We'd even quit playing Nintendo, run out to the living room and watch The Goonies. Because this is one of those movies, man, it's like one of those fun-filled adventure types, and it kind of reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World as well. But, yep, this right here is on my list at number 6. Now, number 5, we're going back. Yeah, literally. We're going back into, not back in time, but into Steven Spielberg territory. Now, I've got the franchise pack, the complete trilogy with me because, which has the discs all in one case, because I couldn't find a single copy. So we're going to go with the original, though, Back to the Future. Once again, we have another fun-filled adventure about a kid who has the ultimate adventure. He gets to meet his parents when they were his age, and he screws up their first meeting and he has to fix it. And the time machine is a cool looking DeLorean. Everybody knows this movie. Who doesn't know Back to the Future? Who doesn't know the adventures of Marty McFly and Doc Brown going up against Biff Tannen and all of Biff Tannen's ancestors and descendants, But yeah, this movie tied in with, product placement like Pepsi and Pizza Hut, I would hope that John DeLorean got a nice, handsome royalty check for every time a copy of this movie, any of these movies are sold. I mean, the franchise alone, you had two video games on Nintendo, you had a video game on Sega Genesis, you had an animated cartoon show, on Saturday mornings, and a you also had McDonald's Happy Meal toys. I mean, it was, and also Universal Studios in Orlando and Hollywood would open a Back to the Future ride. The one I don't know anything. I don't know about, when they closed down the one in Hollywood, but I remember when they closed down the one in Orlando and they replaced it with the Simpsons ride. But I remember going on that ride, and that was just the most fun ever. I mean, it was competing against Star Tours at Disney MGM Studios, and now you could find the simulator ride on YouTube if you want to relive those memories, if you ever went on that ride back in the day. But yeah, they had comic books, a cartoon show, I mean, merchandise. I mean, the sky's the limit with Back to the Future, and generations to come can enjoy this movie. And of course, two sequels, But right here, now, we are going to be climbing into rated R territory. The first real rated R movie I ever sat through and was when I was 5 years old. Now, here's the thing. My mom and dad were preparing our vacation. It was going to be my first time ever in Florida. And what happened was I was going to see Disney World for the first time. I want to say I was about maybe half a month shy of being 6. And my mom and dad were talking to everybody, and we went to go visit my Aunt Ann and Uncle Chris the night before we were to go leave for the airport to fly out to Orlando to go to Disney World, which we'd also go to Kennedy Space Center as well. And my uncle made a joke like, have fun at Wally World. And I'm like, no, Disney World, Uncle Chris, Disney World. Yeah, you're going to Wally World. And my parents were joking about it the whole time. And when we stayed overnight in Cape Canaveral after going to the Kennedy Space Center, now I got the double pack for vacation and European vacation, but yes, this one right here, I saw this for the first time when I was 5 years old, right here. And that's where I understood the whole concept of Wally World. And I got introduced to Chevy Chase. The comedic stylings of Chevy Chase and John Candy, and being able to relate to forced family fun vacations just through this movie. And that would become an open joke. I mean, my mother, next time we would go to Disney World, she would go ahead and, once we got like in the parking lot, she'd jokingly go da 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 da, like that, like they did the whole Chariots of Fire when they finally arrived at Wally World. So yes, so that would be number 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 7 on my list. Now we're going into the territory that consists of being a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Right here, The Empire Strikes Back. Now this, when it came to the original Star Wars trilogy, is considered the best. I mean, I have to agree, even though my favorite out of the trilogy was Return of the Jedi, I have to agree this is the best of the three of them. And it would be years later when Rogue One would be the best Star Wars since this one. But, everything goes to kaput in a handbasket. Yeah, it lives up to its title, The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, Luke trains under Yoda, and then he goes to Cloud City to rescue his friends. And then he finds out revelations when he has to face Vader after Han is frozen and taken away by Boba Fett. And to quote Dante Hicks in the movie Clerks, it ends with a down ending. And no, that's not what life is all about. Life is not a series of down endings, but they left us hanging because Luke got his hand cut off, and then he finds out Vader's his dad. And what happens is you had to wait 3 more years to find out what's going on. Okay, yes. So, number 3 on my list. Yes, The Empire Strikes Back. Number 2 is its sequel, Return of the Jedi. Now, a lot of people like to go ahead and bash the sequel trilogy. They want to say, yeah, The Force Awakens is just a reboot. No, if you want to see reboot of the original Star Wars, look no further than this. They have a new Death Star, new everything. It's almost like the original, except different, but it's my favorite of the series. And now, before we get to number 1, I got to go ahead and bring out the honorable mention. Popeye, starring Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall. Not only was this my first ever look at a live-action movie, but this was my introduction to Popeye. I never knew Popeye was a cartoon. And then, before you know it, I'm watching Popeye cartoons for the rest of my life. Compliments of my father. Robin Williams, probably his very first movie, while he was doing Mork and Mindy. And a lot of people don't care for this movie. It was considered a bomb. But man, it looks like one giant water party, with your clothes on. But you know what? Every chance I got throughout childhood, I always went back to this movie. It was my first ever screening of a live action movie. And now, last but not least, my number 1 favorite movie of all time through childhood. It needs no introduction, but the supernatural classic starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Sigourney Weaver, Annie Potts, and Ernie Hudson. This is probably, to me, my number 1 favorite movie of the 80s. I mean, it's got a legacy now, 40 years later. Merchandise, toys, a cartoon, video games, comic books, novels, a reboot movie, two long-awaited sequels, and the legacy still lives on. Yes, this right here is my number 1 favorite movie through childhood of the 1980s. Ghostbusters, who you gonna call? Well, that's it for this video. And as always, I want to wish you all, I want you to go ahead, put in the comments down below, what are your top 10 favorites of your all-time favorites of the 80s movies through childhood? I'd love to hear some feedback on that. And I already told you to leave comments in the box, like and subscribe. And as always, get you enough of love, get you enough of less chaos, no chaos, less drama, no drama. Get you enough of happiness, get you enough of peace, tranquility. Keep it fresh, keep it real, keep it chill. Watch old school movies, watch old school TV. Listen to your favorite kind of old school music. Play yourself some Nintendo, ColecoVision, Atari, Intellivision, Odyssey, whatever your heart's desire. Godspeed, may the force be with you always, and shucka-lucka kapow.